This story is about Nora and her mother Ilaria. About Rol-land, the musician, and his wife Raffaella. And about Samuel. He is 17 and on the way to becoming a pro snowboarder.
On that day, I was out with a friend. My mobile rings. Mark shows on the display. Mark is Samuel's trainer. I know straight away that something really bad has happened. I hear him say, "Frenny, Samuel's had an accident." Then my battery dies.
At first, I hope that our son Samuel's spine is just bruised. When paralysis is confirmed, I can't bear it anymore. I cry myself to sleep.
Samuel is my best friend at technical school. My colleague said he's had a bad accident. Paralyzed? Quadriplegic. I can no longer concentrate on my work. At night, I lie awake for hours.
In the first few weeks, I am amazingly calm. I just function. Often I must even comfort the others. Samuel, of all people, helps me.
Finally daylight. The time in intensive care and the first night in the room were awful. Evelyn later told me that I had clenched her wrist so hard during a bad dream that she had to ask for help. Luckily, I did not injure her. She will accompany me to the first rehabilitation session.
Quadriplegic. I can't even imagine what it must be like. But when I see Samuel, I breathe a sigh of relief. He's just like I know him. He can still laugh and still has nonsense in his head.
Samuel said to me once, "I want to move stylishly in my wheelchair." Just like on a snowboard, I thought.
In May 1982, I had an accident on a motorbike. An oncoming car cut the corner, ran over my front wheel, and I cannoned head first into the radiator grille of the next car. At that point, the Swiss Paraplegic Centre was still in Basel. Dr. Guido A. Zech had been head physician there since 1973. After 2 weeks in a coma, I came round. Dr. Zech informed me that I would be paralyzed from the neck down for the rest of my life. Tetraplegic. That's a hard road. I often ask myself what I would be like today if Dr. Zech hadn't implemented his vision of holistic rehabilitation of paraplegics against all the odds. After 5 weeks of lying down, I longed for movement. But when I sat in a wheelchair for the first time, I had one of my worst moments. As a recent tetraplegic, it doesn't feel like I'm sitting. It feels like my head is falling to the ground. The slightest vibration in a lift, for example, gives me a fright. In the following days, I always said, I feel like a ghost who only has his shoulders, neck and head and floats through the corridors. I feel no contact with the ground.
After my first rehab session, I feel like I'm attached to Nottwil by an umbilical cord. To make sure I stay healthy, I go back regularly, for example, for an annual inspection. Nowhere else do you find professionals from so many disciplines who really work together. During the first rehab session, I found that painting, Feldenkrais therapy, and exchanges with the other paraplegics offset the strict treatment program for my body.
The function of my hands is very limited. But in spite of this, I lead an independent life. We paraplegics fight for our independence with rigorous training. Day after day, movement and sport are pivotal.
23 Mal.
Many quadriplegics are able to accept the wheelchair as part of their personality at some stage. Even after 5 years, I still can't manage this. Here, there's a large selection to try out. I like the look of this chair, but the back is 2 centimeters too deep. I have no feeling there, so I can hardly keep my balance.
Before I became a tetraplegic myself, I didn't know that paraplegics' bowels and bladder don't work properly anymore. For many paraplegics, this is harder than the paralysis itself. Luckily, spinal cord injury medicine has made great advances since my accident, which makes regularly emptying your bowels and bladder somewhat easier.
I can forget my training as a carpenter. We are looking into other possibilities, a business apprenticeship or something, and then a job. Here is my whole rehab team together. Afterwards, everyone's task is clear. Assessment, they call it. It's cool. They're all working for me. And tomorrow, for the first time, I can go home for a few hours. My occupational therapist and the architect are coming. They will advise us on how to convert the apartment. I am looking forward to it.
My husband and I were on the way home when I heard a loud crack. A tree fell down from a slope above the road onto us. I was unlucky to be hit on the back. My husband was unhurt. Shortly after the accident, I kept asking the doctors again and again if I could still have children. The answer was always the same. We don't know. I was only recently married. Only 2 months after the first rehab session, I was pregnant. I was both overjoyed and completely uncertain at the same time. 1,000 questions came to mind, and often I couldn't find any adequate answers. Luckily, I found women with experience through the Swiss Paraplegic Association. Their practical tips and confidence helped me through my uncertainties. There are still days where I feel like I'm only half a mother. I found it difficult to be constantly asking for help. Some days, I completely forget my wheelchair for a moment, thanks to my daughter's love. It's these little pockets of happiness which keep me afloat. Apart from my daughter, my work is very important to me. I'm still with the same employer, in another capacity, but still. During my first rehab session in Nottwil, I heard about a large scientific study of the Paraplegic Foundation. At first I assumed it was to do with medicine, but then I understood that it was about social issues, so I said I was prepared to take part. How do I go back to everyday life? What obstacles and opportunities arise? The researchers analysed the experiences of many paraplegics. Their results will not only benefit wheelchair users, all of society, especially the politicians, can make decisions based on this knowledge.
Talking to Stefan about very personal things helps me a lot. He is my peer, has a lot of experience with wheelchairs and life. The Swiss Paraplegic Association hires people like him so that they can pass on their experience.
With each new class I get, the children are a bit unsure of me. At the end of the school year, they don't see the wheelchair anymore. They just forget it. I'm a teacher, just like the others.
Samuel, Ilaria and Rol-land can lead an independent, self-determined life, thanks to the support of the Swiss Paraplegic-Group. Comprehensive services are available to those affected for their whole life, long after the acute phase. Because for them, independence and mobility mean quality of life. As patrons of the Swiss Paraplegic Foundation, you can make an important contribution to a worldwide, unique service network. We support those affected from accident to integrated rehabilitation through the rest of their life, including professional rescue, initial medical treatment, extensive rehabilitation with therapy and care, and guidance back to career, family, and society. Here, paraplegics receive uncomplicated fast help and support, tailored to their individual needs. Life can change from one second to another. If fate decides that you will suffer spinal paralysis after an accident like Samuel, Ilaria or Rol-land, you will receive, as a patron, a one-off payment of up to 250,000 Swiss francs, worldwide and independent of insurance. Become a patron of the Swiss Paraplegic Foundation. Thank you.